Maybe. So as you guys could probably tell, today we're not working on my Caterpillar swapped F350. We have the Subaru in the garage. But you're probably thinking, what on earth could you be doing to a Subaru? I mean, great little cars, right? We're doing the head gasket, you know, just normal maintenance for a Subaru. You know, you want to do this every couple thousand miles. So the head gasket in this car has now been blown for about a year, probably a year and a half now. It was quite a while ago I noticed it started doing some funky stuff here with this overflow bottle. There's lots of different ways that these head gaskets can blow and lots of different ways that they can manifest. And both times when mine has gone, it pushes all the coolant out into the overflow, and that's how you know the head gasket is like initially blown. And then I've kind of been stringing this thing along because, you know, my truck's down, so I needed something to drive. So I've been stringing this thing along for like the past year and a half, 2 years with a blown head gasket, and eventually you start running into overheating issues. But if you just add water, you're fine. For a while there, you know, it was like I had to add water once a week, and then we got to the point where I was like twice a week, and then like every other day. And as of recently, this week I added water before I went to work, before I left work, before I left the babysitter's house, halfway home, and then when I got home, and it would still be overheating. So I think it's finally time that we address this issue. This will be the second time I've had to do the head gaskets on this. The first time I did not do the head gaskets. The car was brand new to me at that point. I literally had the thing like 4 months. Yeah, it would have been like 4 months because lemon law for the age that it was only like 3 months. You know, it's always perfect when that kind of stuff happens, right? I took it to a shop. I was not as mechanically inclined as I am now. I didn't really want to take on that job at that point. It costs a lot of money if you take one of these to shops to have it done, so we're gonna give it a shot, you know? Like a friend of mine says, it's already broken. What's the worst that could happen? The car's getting to a point where it is starting to rust out in a lot of different areas. Fuel tank's rotting out, you know, under all the plastic covers that they put on, it's rusting out. Transmission does some funky stuff. So when this started to go, my thought was kind of like, is it really worth it to spend the money and put a head gasket in it? But then I got on the internet, and you know what I found? Head gasket kit with every gasket that you'll ever need from here to there, with the timing belt, timing tensioner, all the components, water pump, like everything you need. 150 bucks. I said, that screams quality, so we're gonna throw it in here. And my thought is, if I put a $150 head gasket in it and it lasts me even a year, like I don't know if this is gonna pass inspection when it's due in April. If $150 gets us to April, and then we, you know, look at buying a new car, then that's fine too. Head gasket kit is ordered, should be in next week. We're gonna go ahead and start ripping this thing apart, you know, just tear some stuff out of it, like this engine, and then we'll get to work on it. And we'll say you can do these in the car from what I've heard, but it is way easier just to take it out. Like there's not much that holds these things in, you know. Let's get into it. Oh, that came out easier than, oh, I think I broke it. Okay. Alright, I think we're ready to give it a tug and see what we forgot to unhook. There's probably a lot of stuff we forgot to unhook. Well, as you can see behind me, the engine is out of the car. It's really not that bad of a job. I started on this late last evening, and I would have had it out last night, but it was fighting me. Pretty sure the last guy that put this in glued it in or something. I don't know. It was stuck pretty good to each other. Oh, look at that. There's a wrench in there. It's a great design right here, this whole opening here. It's good job Subaru on that. These two studs that they put on here make it like you have to have everything lined up just right to get it to slide off of those. And I fought with it last night for the longest time, and then I just gave up and came out this morning and just yanked that sucker right out of there. So we're gonna start pulling everything apart. We got to get the intake off of here. Well, we're not going to take the intake completely off, but we're going to take it off the heads. Got to get this EGR line off of there. We got to get the timing covers off. I haven't really decided yet how I want to do this. My original plan was to put it up at my welding table, but I don't think that's going to be a very good option. So you have to excuse the noise. They're doing an air show this weekend and they're doing practice today. Of course, they're not going to fly by right now when I'm out here with the camera, but that's what all the noise is about. They were just like flying around and stuff a couple minutes ago. Completely destroy your valves, but not the only way. Can you say, welcome to DrewMan'sDriveway?
You got me.
All right, guys, so as you just saw, we got the engine out of the car. We got it disassembled. We got the heads off. It was a lot easier than I thought it'd be. I did already take the heads to my machine shop, which was honest. I say my machine shop, this was my first time there, and it was honestly a really cool experience for me. Probably about a year ago, I was on YouTube just like going around, checking things out, and I came across this channel with this guy, and he had a all steam powered machine shop. I guess it's not all steam, but the good portion of his machine shop is steam powered. And in the video that I was watching, I believe it was for his drill press, he was talking about where it came from. And he mentioned the town and the shop that he had purchased it from, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not far from me if it's the same one, you know, because they make more than one Johnson City. Apparently there's one in Tennessee and one in New York. Who knew? And then I was talking to my buddy Zach, and I said, hey, I came across this YouTube channel, this cool old steam powered machine shop. And he goes, oh yeah, Dave Richards. I'm like, you know him? Yeah, he did a couple of heads for me. Turns out he's about 25 minutes from me. So that was a pretty cool experience. I went out there to drop off the heads, and he gave me a little tour of his machine shop and all of his steam powered stuff. It was a cool experience to get to see all that. You know, that old kind of stuff is, I don't know, like a dying breed. You know, guys like him, I don't feel like exist anymore in the newer generation, you know. And it's cool that he has brought back to life that older style, the older way of doing things. And it was just a cool experience to learn about his shop there and where some of his equipment has come from. Shot a couple of clips while I was there, but nothing major, you know. This video is not about that, but if you want to learn more about his steam-powered machine shop, you can head over to his channel. I'll leave a link up in the top. He's got a lot of videos talking about all his equipment and stuff, so it was a cool experience to see that and meet him. Yeah, so he did my heads for me. This is the head gasket set that I purchased on eBay. This whole kit was $150. It comes with new head bolts. It comes with all the timing, tensioners, pulleys, idlers. So this is the actual gasket kit itself. It comes with basically every seal. It does come with new valve seals. It looks like there's new freeze plugs in there, O-rings, valve cover gaskets. I haven't even opened this. I don't know what all is in here, but it looks like a pretty decent kit. And then here are your head gaskets. They're multi-layer steel coated gasket. It also came with the water pump. So there's your water pump gasket, your brand new evergreen timing belt. It's pretty fitting that they probably came over on an evergreen shipping container. Brand new water pump, and they even include 2 tubes of high temperature silicone. Now, one of the things that Dave Richards told me about these Subaru heads is you have to have there's a certain, I forget what the number was or what the specification was, but the finish on these has to be really smooth. And basically the way he explained it is, you know, you have that multi-layer steel, stainless steel and plastic gasket, and how it's supposed to work is as your head heats up and contracts, you know, they're going to move at different rates. So as your head expands, you know, the stainless steel and plastic are going to kind of rub together, and they're designed to do that. And if you have a rough finish on these, it's going to chew that plastic up, and that's what's going to cause your gasket to fail prematurely. He said that the heads, when I had this done previously, the machine shop that did them used a belt sander. You could tell because there were nice long straight lines all through the head rather than these, you know, circular mill marks that you can see here. And this is a real smooth finish. Why are you sneaking around back there? I don't like that grin. He said it's impossible to get a straight finish on there. It's going to have like a, you know, the outsides are going to have a little more taken off than the inside. And he said without a doubt that's what caused these gaskets to fail after 60,000 miles. We got a good finish on these ones, so they're ready to go in. Like I said, I did check the valve guides and not a single one of them had dropped. So, you know, he didn't mention that it needed any valve work. The inside of this engine looks really good. I can't remember if I showed you guys or not inside the engine here, but the cylinder walls are all smooth. You can still see the crosshatch in every single one. I think it was this cylinder here had a small score, a vertical score line in it, but you can't even feel it. It's just you can see it, one of those deals. We're going to get things kind of cleaned up. He said on the engine side, on the block, he said to take like a plastic scraper and just kind of run it along it and make sure nothing catches it, because that'll destroy your head gasket. Beyond that, he said just use some steel wool and basically just polish the surface. You don't want to get aggressive and leave marks in it that are going to tear up the head gasket. So yeah, we're going to get the head slap back on. And one other thing I was kind of nervous about, you know, I've never had one of these apart, if I'm honest. And you may remember a few clips ago I went to take off my cam pulley and I kind of screwed up there. You're supposed to leave the belt on and crack that bolt loose, and then take the belt off, and then take that bolt out. That way if it does spin, like everything kind of spins together. I did not do that, and I just kind of like, you know, and the whole thing spun right out of my hand. So I was kind of worried about that. But the way that these Subarus work, if you have the crank pulley on the timing mark, all the cylinders are going to be down into there. The firing order on these is kind of weird. It's not what I thought it was. So it goes this cylinder, this cylinder, this cylinder, that cylinder. So it's like pop, 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 pop. I found kind of a cool video that shows the firing order, helps visualize it. So yeah, all the strokes are kind of like mid-bore when you have that timing mark there. So it doesn't make a difference if you spin it over. The valves aren't going to contact the pistons. You're going to be fine. I always get real nervous doing timing stuff because it's like so easy to screw up. So yeah, we're going to get to this and start slapping it back together. All right, so I'm getting ready to put the head back on this side here. So I'm going to clean up this surface. See, there's a lot of old gasket material and just other gunk, and you want this to be really smooth and clean. You don't want to use anything too abrasive here because you know, if you take off too much material in one spot, it's not going to be flat, so you'll have less sealing power, you know, so you want it to remain smooth. So I'm using just these bristle discs. They are a 3M product. The yellow one is a coarse one, and then the white one is a fine one, so I'll just hit it with this one to clean off the majority of the crap, and then we'll switch to the white one to kind of polish it. And then I also have like a little Scotch-Brite, like really fine Scotch-Brite pad that we'll hit it with to just finish polishing it off and get it as smooth as possible. I don't go real fast with these. Low speed, keep it moving, clean it off, and don't damage anything. And try not to slip off and like go in and score your cylinder walls. Probably best to bring the pistons up to the top, but yeah. That's pretty much good. This is a good time too to get your intake manifold, get that cleaned up and ready for the new gasket to go back together, because once you put the head on, unless you take the intake off, you're not gonna be able to get to that. So now we're gonna clean this up real good. You wanna make sure you get all the debris out of your cylinders, get as much as you can out of the water jacket, and same with the oil. That way, when you start the engine up, it doesn't suck it through and damage stuff. All right, so I think we got things clean enough and we are ready to start putting things back together. So these are the new head gaskets. They only go on one way. There's a oval port here, and that's for your oil pressure, which is up here. So that has full oil pressure, and then down here is your returns. So those two go on the bottom. Set that up on the dowels. A lot of people reuse the factory Subaru bolts, and I probably would have, but this kit came with new ones, and kind of the whole point of this video is just testing out a $150 Subaru head gasket kit. So we're using everything that they sent us in the kit that we need. So we're going to be replacing the head bolts. You want to make sure that you oil the threads as well as the head on both sides of the washer. That way, as you're tightening it, you get the actual torque, you know, and you're not losing some torque in the friction. I'm just using regular engine oil. You can use assembly lube or whatever heart desires. Yeah, just gonna get one ready here. You want to make sure that you get oil all over everything. So now you're just gonna set this up on there very carefully. Be a lot easier if there wasn't a camera right there. All right. Just run it down. It's a lot easier just to run it down with the impact. You don't want to tighten it yet, but just run her down. Go ahead and run all the rest of these down. I'm going to do it in the sequence. So you start this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one. All right, so now that we have those in there, grab our torque wrench. First step here, we're going to torque them down to 24 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque them down to 51 foot-pounds. This is where it gets fun. So now we're gonna back each of these out 180 degrees, reverse sequence. Now we're gonna do it again, 180 degrees, reverse sequence. Which pretty much makes them loose. Now we're gonna tighten them to 30 foot-pounds, sorry, 31. For the last steps of this, it's a good idea to put a little paint mark on the top of the bolt. I don't have a paint pen, so I'm just gonna use a little dab of red Loctite, because that's what I have. It'll work just the same. So now we're gonna go 90 degrees on all of them in sequence. Start with it straight up. Now, if you look at all your bolts, your red dot should all be facing that way. So now we're gonna go 45 degrees on all of them. So now they should be all facing like, what is that, 5 o'clock? That to kind of down and over. Now your middle two, you're gonna put another 45 degrees on those. For those following along at home, that means that our paint mark should be facing straight down. All right, that looks good. Wipe off our paint marks. This head is now torqued. We're ready to, we'll put new seals on our spark plug tubes, and we'll get the valve cover ready to put back on, and we'll keep putting this thing back together. All right, so my intake is bolted down. Those get bolted, I think it was like 19 foot-pounds or something. Got these guys here replaced. So before I put the valve cover on, you wanna make sure you oil all this, because when it goes through the machine shop, you know, he washed this out to get all the chips out of it and clean it out. So he washed all the oil off of your camshaft and all your rollers and stuff. So it's a good idea just to douse this in oil. Everything over here is already covered in oil, so we're just gonna, yeah. And that'll just help ensure everything's lubricated, as you start it up. It also, make sure your table's never gonna rust. So yeah, we're ready to put the valve cover on now. The bolts for your valve cover are different sizes. You have two longer ones, they go up top, and then the rest of them are a little bit shorter. I think something like that. There is a specific torque value for these bolts, 9 foot-pounds, which comes out to 108 foot-pounds or inch-pounds. And the first one I went to do on that side snapped off before it ever got close to the torque specs. So this side here, we're gonna skip that altogether and just go by feel. This head gasket kit came with all new valve cover gaskets. It actually came with like 4 different valve cover gaskets. I don't know if they made different valve covers for these engines or what, but they send you enough valve cover gaskets that you should be able to find one for your specific Subaru engine. It also comes with all new rubbers, which I would recommend changing those out. If you look at the valve cover, you can see these top ones are thicker, the bottom ones are shorter. That's why the top ones get the longer bolts. All right, that is on. Good idea to put a little dielectric grease or some silicone down here. Keep your boots from getting stuck to things. Help them seal up a little bit up there on that top side. All right, I think I'm gonna move on to the water pump now. Once we get the water pump done, then we can do the timing components, timing cover back on, and then pretty much almost ready to go back in. So right here is our water pump. It is driven off of the timing belt. There's nothing wrong with this water pump really, but it's one of those things, you're in here, might as well do it. Plus it came with the kit. It's a lot easier to do it now than when it starts leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I get all that old gasket cleaned off of there. Clean this all up really good. Get any debris that goes inside of there out, and then we'll bolt up the new one. The only thing this kit does not come with is the thermostat, which isn't a huge deal. Goes on the bottom here of the water pump. I chose just to reuse the old one. I don't see why it would go bad, and if it does, it's really not that hard to get to with the engine in the car. So everything's clean. The only thing this kit didn't come with is this seal that goes on the side of the water pump. I had to swap that from the other one to this one, and we're ready to go. These get torqued to 9 foot-pounds also, which is 108 inch-pounds. And one other thing, while when you're putting your thermostat in there, you want the bleeder to face the forward or the front here. I guess that's the highest point, which doesn't make sense because it sits flat. I don't know. Well, right here, we'll put the dipstick back where it belongs. All right, so that cover's on. We got the cam gear on. I don't have it torqued down yet. We'll wait until we have the belt on. This one's kind of hard to line up because where it is, you'll have one set of intake valves and one set of exhaust valves open. And so it's kind of, those valves push back on the cams, so it might roll back and forth a few times. You want to double check and make sure that this cam gear here, your timing mark is lined up with there's a seam on your head. So that one's lined up. And this one has a mark right there. I'll make sure that's lined up with the mark on your doodad there. And this one, the timing mark, lined up with that there. So this is the new timing belt. Like I said, I'm using everything from this kit just because, I'm just curious to see how well a $150 kit is and how long these parts last. So typically on your timing belt, your middle mark will have 2 marks, and that's usually always your crank gear, and then it'll have a directional arrow on it showing you which way it rotates, and then each of your cam gears will have a single mark. This belt, there's no directional, and it's just 3 solid lines. So I think it's safe to say this middle line is your crank gear. We're gonna start with our middle one here, and where your line is, you're gonna start on that rib, and you're gonna line up the center mark on that rib, and we're gonna go this way, down around that tensioner, and then we're gonna put this timing mark right on that line there, down around the back side of the water pump. Okay, don't tip your motor over. Sorry, engine. Don't tip your engine over. So the mark on this side isn't exactly perfect. I don't know. The rest of these, the mark is pretty much directly in line with the line on the gear. But the way that this line is, it's kind of between 2. Probably good enough. Pretty sure these were like 29 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna spin the motor over 2 full revolutions, make sure nothing's hitting anything before I pull this out, because once you pull that out, it's kind of game over. We'll do that and make sure everything's good to go. Your Marks on your timing belt, just because of the way everything works, they're only going to line up like every so many turns. So if you get back to 2 revolutions and the timing marks aren't there, don't freak out. As long as this mark lines up here, that one lines up there, and this one lines up here, then you are golden. Back her up a little bit, bring her forward a little bit, back her back up a little bit. Boom, close enough. All right, I'd say this thing's ready to go. Pull this, tighten that, and start putting covers back on. So for those of you following along at home, you're probably looking at this thinking, hey Drew, wasn't this closer to being done in the last clip? You know, that's what I like about you. Nothing gets by you. So we had everything done. We had the timing belt on. I ran it over twice. Everything felt good. I torqued all my pulleys, idlers, whatever you call them. And when I got to my hydraulic tensioner, the bolt never even got tight. It just kept on spinning. So I pulled it out to see what was going on. And at that point, the belt kind of fell off. The bolt looked fine. The threads looked fine inside of there. So I screwed it back in and pulled it back out. And all the threads were on the end of my bolt, which is kind of a problem. We have a couple of options to fix this. I went this route here. This piece is actually separate from the block, which is kind of nice. And judging by the fact that Subaru had this on the shelf, this probably happens more often than you would think. So that's our new piece there. This was $50 with tax. Your other option would be to get a helicoil kit, which I ordered this before I called Subaru, and this was $30. This was $50. It's like, so I'll probably return this here. So 3 bolts. That old piece should pop right off of there. We'll get this new one on there. And then we can redo our timing belt. And I know I mentioned in the clip earlier that, you know, kind of once you pull that pin, it's all over. And I had already pulled the pin. You can put it in the vise and just slowly squeeze that whole assembly back together and drop the pin back into it. So that's what I did. I lied to you. It's not all over. Once you pull that pin out, you can kind of do it over. So let's get this tore apart and put it back together. All right, so we got the engine all ready to go back in. As you can see, got the timing cover back on, the balancer is on, that gets torqued to 120 foot-pounds. It's a good time also to clean up your throttle body gasket area, get the old gasket off of there. I went ahead and lined up my flex plate, so there's a hole right there, and I'll do the same on the torque converter. So we'll get the car pushed back in here and drop this sucker in. All right, so we got the engine back in the other night. We got everything hooked up, I think. We did a quick oil change. It's a good idea to do an oil change after you had the engine apart like that, because, you know, you may have gotten some water down in there or whatnot. Went ahead and filled the cooling system. We got fresh oil, like I just mentioned already. And go ahead and see if it'll run, which should be cool. That noise does not sound good. All right, cool. Yeah. That's it. Well, I screwed up. As you just saw, we fired the car up for the first time. Fired right off, but we had a little bit of noise coming from the timing cover area, which typically is not a good thing. So you remember a few clips back when I said, once you pull that out, it's kind of game over. And then a few clips after that, I said, you can put it in the vise and just slowly squeeze that whole assembly back together. It turns out, once you pull that out, it's kind of game over. Is correct. We had some issues with the bolt for the timing tensioner stripping out. Yeah. I'm on Snapchat in case you guys didn't know this. I post like some weird stuff every once in a while, just whatever I feel like posting on Snapchat. And every once in a while I'll get talking with someone who watches the videos, and Mr. Coat, he commented or replied back, and we started having a conversation about it, and he said with those hydraulic tensioners you gotta do it real slow, which I thought I did it real slow, and then he said drink a 6-pack, and as you're drinking that 6-pack you turn it in. That's how slow you have to go, and I just kind of like, you know, real slowly pressed it in with the vise. So we screwed that up. Lucky I don't think it jumped time, because it's still tight enough that I don't think that it jumped time. I did take off the timing cover on the right side or left side. I can never figure that out. Driver's side, I took the cover off, and the belt's pretty loose in there. So ordered a new tensioner, $109. I thought about just buying a whole nother head gasket kit. Some of them were over $200 just for the tensioner. I'm gonna line up all the timing marks, make sure that it didn't jump time. If it did, we'll adjust it and hope that it didn't nick a valve. Yeah, we'll change this out. All right guys, so we got the head gasket all finished up. I did change out that tensioner, and I don't think that me recompressing that had anything to do with it. As much as I hate to say it, you know, my $150 kit, I think it was just the quality of the tensioner itself. I think that the tolerances, you know, you put that bolt through and there's supposed to be a sleeve in there that's just slightly longer than the tensioner part. So when you tighten it tightens down on that sleeve and allows the tensioner to still move freely. You know, it's supposed to be like a real tight tolerance so the thing can't slide back and forth. I think the tolerances were just slightly off, and so when I torqued that bolt down, it held it in place and it wasn't allowing it to move at all. So when you started the car, it would kind of push it up and stay there. So anyways, we got that changed out. The new tensioner was only $109, which kind of sucks. It's like almost the price of the whole kit. So I'm kind of disappointed that I wasn't able to use the whole $150 kit, but it is what it is. And on a side note, I got the whole thing put back together and it was still making the same noise. Turns out I was missing a piece of foam or something in one of the timing covers. And the noise that I was hearing that I thought was the timing belt rattling around was actually just the timing cover. But I guess it's kind of a good thing because that tensioner definitely wasn't right. You know, sometimes you have an issue, you think it's one thing, but you know, it's just, it points something else out to you that might save you in the long run. So definitely feel pretty good about it. I've been driving it now for probably 2 weeks, haven't had any overheating issues, there's no leaking issues. I did also take apart the old tensioner. There's a snap ring in there you can pull out and you can actually pull the whole tensioner apart. They are actually spring tension, so there's a spring in there that pushes the piston up. It only uses the fluid to dampen it. So it's got like some holes in it, so it kind of slows down the motion of it and keeps it from like, so I don't think that me compressing it in the vise did any damage to it. Yeah, it's been running good. It's it'll hopefully get us another 163,000 miles, but probably not. The only thing left to do is to check on that pesky check engine light, see why that's on. And up until this point, I've never had my own scanner. I've always just borrowed my dad's. Typically, it's in the glove box of one of my cars, and he always has to ask me to borrow his scanner. Luckily for us, the folks over at King Bolin reached out to us and offered to send us a scan tool. So this is a Think Diag. Not Diag. Diag. Anyways, this is a Bluetooth scanner, so it just plugs into your car's OBD2 port and it connects up to your phone and you can read codes. This actually does a ton of features. I mean, this is pretty much like you could use it as a full scan tool. You can do TPMS, like all sorts of different functions. I was a little skeptical of this scanner for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I've never really had good luck with Bluetooth anything. It seems like they always have trouble connecting, you know, and it's a process. You know, you got to do this, and this, and it takes 10 minutes just to connect up to the device. You know, this has like a serial number you enter in, and it kind of does everything for you. And so far, it's been really good. You know, you just open the app, click the button, it beeps and tells you that you're connected. The other reason I was skeptical is that, like I said, this does a ton of different functions. However, most of the functions are subscription based. So I believe this is $130 for the unit, and then based on what you need to do, you have to pay a subscription fee. And even without spending the money on the added stuff, the OBD2 function is pretty good. You can still do like live stream data, so you can select from a list and you can live stream, you know, O2 sensor voltage, fuel level, whatever, you know, whatever you want, you can still live stream it. You can record a data stream of that, so you can go back and watch it later. You can reset your check engine light. There are a number of things that you can still do without spending the extra money, so I think that this is definitely worth it. It's a neat little tool, small enough you can just throw it in your glove box, your pocket, or whatever, and you're ready to go. My check engine light is on because of the O2 sensor heater circuit. It seems that every year it gets harder and harder for me to pass inspection with this thing, and last year it was O2 sensor stuff, so I bought the cheapest O2 sensors I could find on Rock Auto, and that apparently wasn't the best decision. They were only 20 bucks a piece, so I'm not that upset about it. It got me through that inspection, but we're gonna have to get some new O2 sensors here eventually. Maybe we'll take the 2 spark plug defowlers out of there, and because now we're not burning coolant anymore. But cat might be shot anyways, so. I've been putting this job off for over a year now just because not that I was scared of it, I just haven't had the time, didn't really want to take the time to do it, and it was still running and driving, so, you know, might as well just wait until it stops doing that. But these things are pretty easy to work on. You can have the engine out in a couple hours, you know, especially if you got a friend helping you. The hardest part are those stupid studs that they put on the back of the engine that have to go through the transmission. They kind of make it a little difficult. Other than that, have the engine out in a couple hours, heads off, take them to the machine shop, put it back together, set the timing, drop it in, and the $150 timing kit, I guess it kind of worked out. It was nice to have because I had every seal and everything you would need to like completely rebuild the engine. You might want to get that and then also buy like a better timing kit if you really care. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. If you guys, I don't need to tell you this, but if I did something wrong, be sure to let me know in the comment section also. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed it, feel free to hit the subscribe button.
Have a great day.